Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce to you Sarah Manette. And I have a lot of respect for Sarah because she's very smart and is a great music educator. And that's why I invited her to talk to you. And you've all read her blog now, but I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell you all about herself. And then we'll have questions. Hopefully there will be.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Dr. Bickmore. And good morning. Happy Monday, everybody. We have school off today, so I'm kind of thankful for that. But by now I would have already taught a class, so it's nice. So I'm Sarah, and I met Dr. Bickmore 4 years ago when we were both at Arizona State. But I just kind of wanted to give you a little bit of background on me. I'm in my 15th year of teaching. I don't even know anymore. I lost track. But for many of those years, minus the past 5 years, I taught middle school band. And I was a band teacher. Like, I did band. I taught 6th grade band. I taught 7th grade band. I taught 8th grade band. And when my principal came up to me, he's like, "You're going to teach guitar." I was like, "No, I'm not teaching guitar," which is hilarious now, come to think about it, since that's sort of what I teach. So I was very grounded in the idea that, the bands had to sound good and we put on really great concerts, and that is all really, really good. When I went to Arizona, I kind of had this moment of, what else is there? And I was starting to get a little burnt out of the whole band thing, and I'm not even sure if it was the band thing. I think I had a pretty intense administrator who we didn't necessarily get along and didn't see eye to eye. So I was looking for something new, and Dr. Bickmore and I had many conversations about this, and I was like at a moment of like, oh my God, what's happening? And I was looking for new jobs when I came back from Arizona, and I was in the middle of an interview for a middle school band job. Because at that point I was still like, I think I want to teach band. But in this interview at a really good district, really lots of money flowing in there. The kids were always playing. They all get private lessons, all the things, lots of money. They kept referring to me as the band director, and like, as the band director, how are you going to do this? As the band director, how you would do this? And in the middle of that interview, I was like, well, gal, I don't think I'm a band director anymore. Like, and I was super scared because I was like, oh my God, that means I'm going to have to go back to my old job with my crabby principal we just don't get along. But, oh my God, that's amazing. I can do everything else now that I want to do, that I've been learning about, that I want to try. And my current job, like, literally dropped in my hands. The school that I teach at, they were looking to expand their music electives because the music team saw that our performance groups, band, choir, orchestra, did not represent our student population. So I teach in what you might call an inner city school or an urban school. It's a big school, 2,000 kids. Very, very diverse ethnically, culturally, socioeconomically. And so the reason they hired me was to create music classes that students who aren't interested in band, choir, orchestra would be interested in taking. So that's what I do. So I've been there 3 years now, and I teach beginning band. So we have a really cool thing in our school. In high school, we have beginning band and beginning strings. And that can be for kids who are just interested in learning an instrument. It could be for kids who took band or orchestra in middle school and took a couple years off and want to try it again. Sometimes it's a holding spot for kids because they can't go anywhere else. We have 2 levels of piano, piano 1, piano 2, 2 levels of guitar. I don't teach piano anymore. So what I teach is jazz band, beginning band, this Music in America class, which is like looking at 20th century, 21st century music through a social justice lens. and I teach 2 levels of guitar. So it's really varied, and it's amazing. And we also have a very strong performance. My performance colleagues are amazing. So we have 3 bands in addition to beginning band, 2 orchestras, and 4 choirs. It's incredible. It's incredible, and we live in our own little world, and it's great. But one of the reasons I wrote that blog post is I really felt a sense of panic when I read this article by this guy down in Florida who asserted that successful teaching or learning or whatever is done this way, and it looks this way, and it feels this way. And the way I teach guitar is really different than other colleagues in other schools who teach guitar. They come at it at a performance perspective. So the kids sit in a semicircle, there's a conductor, and they play basically Western classical music, another tradition. And I was like, that's not what this school needs. We don't need another performance, and that would exclude a lot of kids, right? There's concerts that you have to do. Well, a lot of the kids that I have take care of their siblings at night. They work jobs. I have a student who somehow manages to be a high school student and works 40 hours a week to help support her family. There's no way she'd be able to do concerts, right? I also really wanted to focus on this idea that students are already musicians when they come to us, right? All of them are musicians. They're all creative beings. But how can we facilitate that even more in our classrooms? So I decided to not use the method books. I decided that we would do a lot of, I guess, Lucy Green style learning, and it's been awesome. And I did an informal poll with the kids last week. What?
Sorry, some of that broke up.
Oh.
You said that you decided not to use method books.
Yeah.
And teach more in a Lucy Green style.
Yeah.
I don't know if we all know who Lucy Green is. You kind of give us a little bit of a description of that.
So Lucy Green, and Isaac, you can fill in my gaps as well. She's a European researcher, and she is really into informal learning. So rather than me telling the students, this is how you do this, this is how you do this, this is how you do this, giving them a goal, and they kind of figure out how to reach that goal. I also do that with beginning band. Like, we don't even touch a book until maybe the 2nd month of school. But that being said, we are playing songs by the first day they have an instrument in their hands. So it's kind of flipping this idea of, like, what does it mean to be musically literate? What does it mean to be a musician? And really tapping into this idea, again, that students bring a lot of experiences with them, and how can I, as a teacher, use those experiences to create an atmosphere that students feel creative and musical, more musical. Excuse me, I have
Sarah.
some more coffee. What?
No, it's okay. Sarah, you're breaking up. I'm going to call you on your phone.
Okay.
To get better sound.
Okay. That means I should turn my phone on. Hello. Ooh. Let me turn that sound off.
How's it going?
It's good. How are you all? You all look like sleepy college students on a Monday morning.
They're not sleepy. They're so energized right now.
I can see that.
Say something, Sarah.
Hey, what's up? All I can see is like your tie right now.
Yeah, I moved. It probably froze.
That's okay. We can still talk.
But now we've got your voice.
Well,
right.
And that's the most important thing, right? All right. I love Google, but I'm not a fan of Google Hangouts. So So what was your last thing? Oh, there you all are. What was the last thing that you heard me say?
Something about Lucy Green. Yeah, they're playing songs by the first day they get the instruments in their hand.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, but anyway, back to the reason why I wrote this article. I was just really conflicted as to what that word even means, success. And as somebody who's trying a lot of new things all the time that I haven't tried before, like, how am I, as teachers, we have few moments to share what we work on in our classes, and those are often in concerts and whatever. So what does it even mean to be successful? And some of my colleagues, my guitar colleagues, have said, well, if my students are going to take guitar, they're going to graduate knowing how to read music, and that's fine. That works for them. They're also working with a population that probably is pretty literate already in English. And so, what I've found, for an example, is that a lot of my students don't speak English. They're like level 1, maybe level 2. And so, this idea of 5 lines on a staff and then like trying to figure that out when you have 6 guitar strings is very, very confusing. So, I just do tabs and it works. And it's great. And that was a humbling moment for me, because I came into teaching guitar like all my kids are going to be able to read music, and it just wasn't feasible, especially when I can't speak their language and I don't have somebody to translate for me. It's kind of hard to explain that 5 lines does not equal 6 lines. It was very confusing. So I was like, "Ugh, we're going to table that for a different day." So, I guess that whole success thing was kind of like, it was just a moment of panic. So.
Okay. So, does anybody have any questions about that? Like that thing that she just said right now, or things that she said before?
And I also have a list of questions that I was sent last night that I can answer too.
Yeah, I kind of mined through some of the people that turned stuff in and sent her some of your questions. But Tim just had a question right here.
Sure.
Go ahead, Tim. What songs did you have them playing on the first day? In band. This would be in band, right?
Sure.
What songs did you have them playing on the first day?
Anything that goes mi, re, do, right? Mi, re, do, re, mi, re, re, mi, re, do, re, mi, re, do. Easy. Or 3, 2, 1. I wasn't teaching note names. I was teaching numbers, which, again, a lot of my kids are English language learners. So holding up this and showing them this is how you play this note. I mean, and then the next day, day 2, they were writing their own music. They're coming up with their own melodies. It's amazing what kids can do when we get the heck out of the way, right? I mean, we're so fixated on this idea of that kids have to read music before they play. Think about it. Were you all reading novels before you learned how to speak? Right? I mean, maybe some of you were. That's cool. But think about that, right? Think about that. Did you know what mama looked like, or papa, or tree, or dog? Did you know what those words looked like before you heard them? Probably not.
Or even before you knew what they meant.
Exactly.
Right? We knew what words meant before we could even read them in English, like in the Greek alphabet.
Yeah. So we spent like a whole 3 weeks learning songs by numbers, and the kids create their own songs using numbers. It's amazing. It's fascinating. And then we translate that.
Okay, any other questions? Chris has one. Go ahead, Chris.
So you talk about literacy.
Mm-hmm.
Music literacy and I guess what you're doing is challenging the traditional idea of what is music literacy, is the goal to get the students where they can eventually be on the same level as those who are doing music that want to do music professionally, or is it just are you just trying to get them literate enough to be able to contribute in every day? What I guess is the
Sure. Well, there are a lot of professional musicians who can't read music, right?
Notably, Paul McCartney is famous for saying that he can't read a note.
Right. So we have to reconsider, what do we mean by then professional musicians, or just, what is the goal? What is the goal of music education? My goal is so that students, when they leave the classroom, feel creative, feel like they can pick up an instrument, be it guitar, piano, their saxophone, or whatever, and feel good about what they're doing. If that means that they can read music and then can play in ensembles, that's awesome. If it means that they can create their own music, create their own songs using chord changes, writing lyrics, that's awesome. I mean, it's really an individualized goal. Because professionally, like, how many professional bands exist? Like wind ensembles? Not many. Professional orchestras, like, what is the percentage of people that actually get into orchestras? Right? Like, how many professional tuba players are out there? Not to be dismissive, and I'm not dismissing that at all. Like, I think that's really important, but I also think that for some people, that's just not what they want to do. On a very personal level, like, I played in a wind ensemble. I played in band from the time I was from 5th grade until a year ago. And I was 37. So how old are you? And I was playing in a band for however many years. And I quit because it was just a lot of things, the dissertation writing and all the things. And now I play in a saxophone quartet. We just get together and play. And it's awesome. Like, just getting together and jamming. It's fine. Like, that is my musical life right now. I really appreciate the time that I had learning how to read music. At the same time, I wish I would have had experiences in high school where I got to create my own music. Like, I got to write songs. I never wrote a song until I started teaching this class. And I wish I would have had that experience.
Let's do just a quick survey. Does anybody else have that same feeling that Sarah feels? That you wish you had a chance to write music, or did you? So, did you write music in high school as part of the curriculum? So let's say, who wrote music as part of the curriculum in your high school? Like the teacher said, let's write songs. We got 1, 2, 3. Like as part of like your school work. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then who wishes that they had more opportunities to do that in high school?
Yeah.
And then we've got 1, 2, like more than half the class.
And it doesn't even take a guitar class to do that. Like I said, in beginning band, they write their own solos. Now, are they theoretically appropriate? Are they avoiding blah, 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 and all this and that and the other and all the other stuff that I forgot since freshman year college theory? Probably. They're breaking all the rules. But you know what? When I ask them, what do you like about this? They're like, I love writing my own music. I love the fact that I can create my own sounds. That's so powerful. Like, we can recreate music for sure.
But how are you going to have time to get a 1 at state if they're writing their own songs?
Well, shoot. It's a good thing it's a good thing that is not like a huge emphasis here. Well,
yeah, because Sarah, I did want to say, like, I was being tongue-in-cheek and making a joke out of it, but also
it's a thing. I get it.
There are administrators who would say, the only way we know how to assess you is if you get a 1 at state.
Right.
So what would you say to those administrators or to the people who are worried about those administrators?
Well, I would say that students, by creating their own music, then have a better understanding of what's going on in the music that has already been created for them. They also, have this understanding of how it feels to be a composer. And so then it just I think it encourages them to own that music even more because they themselves have created music, and so they themselves understand, like, if they share the song or whatever and somebody's not playing it right to them, they have a say. And so if they have music that is put in front of them that has already been created, let's say Lincolnshire Posey or something, you've got like a killer high school band or whatever, they might be able to relate to the composer a little bit more. And also, like, um, they understand. I think Maud Hickey in her book, uh, something out of the lines, creating out of the lines, or composing, or something out of the lines. It's a good book, but she says everything, like every concept that is taught, should be reinforced by creating. So if you're talking about scales or whatever, instead of having the kids write a scale or play a scale, have them create in that key. But also, to the administrator thing, I would invite them into the classroom and say, look at what the students are doing. Like, they're creating their own music. Let's look at the bigger picture here. I know that's much easier said than done. But then also, if you're really not happy in that kind of environment, then maybe reconsider where you're teaching. And that's hard. That's really hard. I get that. It's really, really hard. But there are places out there where that is not the focus. But yeah.
And then I would also say that if an administrator says the only way we know how to assess you is by how well you do at state in festivals and things like that, you could say, well, I've created all of this data like that. Yeah, like here are my students. This student wrote this song, and here's a reflected response from this student where they wrote down what it was like to learn to create music with their instrument, right? And then that's data that the principal can say, oh, they're learning things, they're learning about notation or not, or they're learning how to create or compose, but they're, you can make up your own data. That's where music we have like, and by make up, I don't mean, I mean collect data that music teachers don't normally collect. Do a survey at the beginning of your course and say, what do you know about music and what do you want to know about music? And then you do an exit survey where they say, what did you learn about music and did you learn the things that you wanted to learn? Those are things you can show your say, look, this person didn't know this, chose to learn something about it, and I gave them space in that class to learn it, and then by the time they're done, they learned it.
Yeah, for sure.
Talking from me, though. Any other questions? Thoughts?
I can address a couple of the questions.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So some of you wrote really thoughtful questions, by the way. Thank you so much. So some of you read my recent post about not giving up on a student. And I know that can be really scary to think about, having students that are rude and defiant and just not fun people to be around. We've all experienced them in our classes, like as high school students, as college students. And when I was a young teacher, that really scared me. There were classes where I was like, oh my God, like I would get the sweats. I'd break out in hives. Like literally, it was just, I let them get to me. A few things to keep in mind. They're teenagers or they're fifth graders, and there's things going on hormonally that they have no control over, right? Like they're weird. And sometimes when my kids start acting weird, I just kind of step back and I'll say to them, so the aliens that have abducted your bodies can now leave, or something to that manner. And they laugh and we shake it off. But you're going to have students that really try you. And I think those are the moments where our best teaching could potentially happen. And that's where we need to consider what else is going on in this child's life. These are children. So I had a student, it was kind of, I'll share this story real quick. Muhammad, he's just mad, and he comes into guitar. It wasn't an elective that he necessarily chose. and he just wasn't digging into guitar. And I sat down face to face with him. I'm like, okay, Mohammed, what's going on? Like, what's your song going to be about? And he's like, about how I hate this class. I'm like, okay, let's talk about why do you hate this class? He's like, because I don't get it. I'm like, okay, why aren't you understanding it? And he skipped a few times. And I'm like, well, it's like this third week in the semester. I said, how many times have you been here? He's like, well, like 5 times out of like 15. I said, okay. I said, why are you in this class? And he's like, because I was in art and I hated the art teacher. And I said, okay, what happened in that class? And he's like, well, he was just an asshole to me. And I'm quoting the kid. I'm like, okay, so what was going on? He's like, well, I just didn't like art. And so I was a jerk to him because he was a jerk to me. And I said, oh, okay. So this, digging deeper, further and further and further. I said, well, what kind of grade did you get in that class? He's like, well, I got an F. I said, well, why did you get an F? Well, because I didn't do anything. I said, uh-huh. I said, and now you're not playing basketball, are you? And he's like, no. So he's actually really upset because he struggled with a teacher. The teacher gave him an F because he didn't, like, being responsible, right? I said, well, Mohammed, like, I get that you were upset at the teacher, but being rude to the teacher, who did that actually hurt? Like, who did this F actually hurt? Because he thought in his brain, his teenage brain, that getting an F in the class was going to somehow, like, upset the teacher. And the teacher was going to feel bad. And I said, well, let's look at the consequences here. Now you're not playing ball. So he was up, like, it was just this whole thing. He actually was not upset at me. He's actually really upset at himself. And so we had to dig deep together. I said, well, let's talk about these lyrics then. Like, what do you really want to talk about? And we came up with something. I think we're talking, I think he's talking about what it's like to be a black teenage boy in an inner city having to walk down the street and constantly be looked at by police. I mean, it's intense. It's some intense stuff. And after our talk, he got to work. And then at the end of the class, he came up to me and he's like, do you want to look at my lyrics? I said, yeah, I do. And so we made this huge connection because I wasn't going to give up on that kid. Like, I knew that there was something much deeper going on, rather, because again, he's a teenager. He's put in this class. He's trying to figure out what is it like to be an immigrant, where there's a lot of rhetoric right now about immigrants, specifically Muslims, being spewed about, and like, what is it like to be a black Muslim boy in a city, where we've had white on black violence, and he's just trying to figure this out, and kids don't know how to, like, deal with that. And I'm sure Dr. Bickmore can talk about his cute little boys who are amazing kids, but sometimes they just don't know how to process, and so they act out, right? And so I think we have to really think about what's really going on. And I firmly believe that every child wants to feel loved and wants success. And just because they're screwing around in our classroom or showing apathy doesn't mean that they don't want to or can't. It just means that they haven't had necessarily an opportunity, or have been provided an opportunity, or have been invited to the table to share. Does that make sense? It's powerful. Like, when he came up to me, he was like, do you want to look at my lyrics? I was like, oh my God, yes. Yes. It was awesome.
Chris has one more question.
Yeah.
Where is he now?
Yeah, where's Mohammed now?
Oh, this was just like 2 weeks ago.
Oh.
Yeah.
So he didn't win a Grammy yet? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yeah.
Not yet.
Doubt it. But, I mean, just now he and I have a conversation, right? Now we have a connection. Because I spent that, I had 23 kids in the class. And they're fine. They're happily strumming their guitars. It's work time. But he needed that. He needed an adult who sat with him and said, I'm not going to give up on you. I am here. When you're ready, let's go. Let's do this. He hadn't had that before. And I'm a white woman talking to him, right? There's a lot of stuff going on that we have to acknowledge. And especially in my classrooms, like, I'm the minority. So, yeah. It was awesome.
Sorry, Sarah. I just had to let people. Some people have to go to pep band, so I'm letting them go.
What on earth is happening at 8:30 in the morning for pep band?
Junior day.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really? Are there a lot of students? There's 500 to 600. Okay, Sarah. Before we let you go, I just want to do one thing. Ask a question.
Yeah.
So that story that Sarah just told us about Muhammad, does it remind you of any of the readings that we've done this semester? Yes. Which one? The what? The core narrative one? What else? Does it remind you of anything else we've read this semester? What about the empathy? Knowing the student's actual life. Remember, does that sound like that? I think it does speak to the core narrative one too, right? Oh, the one about actualized learners and that's bell hooks.
Ah.
So Sarah, I just wanted to say thank you so much, and I'm just going to let you know and them know that I've created a Google chat that I think is live now on Google Classroom, and your assignment from now until just whenever, till Monday, I think I'll leave it open for that long. Actually, it'll be open forever if you guys want to, Sarah. But it's like, just go on to the chat and ask your questions. So that's your assignment. Everybody, I'll be on there too, checking to see who's there and leaving nice comments about things. So there's a link in Google Classroom. And let's just give Sarah a round of applause.
Yeah, and again, all the questions that you sent me were really, really great, and I will answer them as I can.
What I did is I gave her access to your Google Docs. So she might leave comments on your Google Docs, or she might write a response or something like that. And you still have time to turn in your Google Docs. Please do. Do it if you haven't yet. Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Dr. Bickmore. Bye.
See you later.
See ya.
Bye.